Well, actually not. The process is one that would be an early decision student. So we would be in a position where we would certify, or I shouldn't say certify, we would make an eligibility determination that it was an early decision, and in that instance, then the requirement for the high school graduation is left to the institution. We sort of have completed our job at that point, and as long as you all on campus eventually get the determination of high school graduation, then you're in a position to move forward.
What you need to know before a student registers, I want to spend some time reviewing the pieces that are involved with the registration process and also a little bit with competitive experience. So by now, I hope that most coaches have started to build their shortlist. Your school's Play NAIA Manager is the place where you can go to view and actually manage and add students to your shortlist or remove them if you need to. The Eligibility Center asks that each school's staff add their most serious recruits to the shortlist so that we know which student should be a priority when we are making eligibility determinations. By this point in the year, I would hope that a lot of schools have really begun to fill their shortlist with their recruits and are populating those. Your school shortlist is exclusive to your school. Nobody else can see your shortlist outside of the designated athletic department staff and those of us on staff at the Eligibility Center. But remember that you can only add a student to your shortlist if that student is registered with the NAIA Eligibility Center. That's one of many reasons why it is important to encourage your recruits to make sure they get to playnaia.org and register early. The shortlist function on Play NAIA Manager also allows you to review your recruit's status. So by clicking on one of the status listed in the shortlist, you can actually see details about what that student has submitted to us and what they're missing, so you can help your recruit stay on top of making sure their profile and their documentation is complete. By clicking on that, you can also see where the details are of the student's determination once we've made a determination for that student. Another feature that's available to you in Play NAIA Manager is NAIA Connections. NAIA Connections is an option available to any student athlete registered with the Eligibility Center. We want to once again stress that this is a completely optional service. Student athletes who already know which school they plan to attend can bypass NAIA Connections. Students who do decide to use NAIA Connections can build a sport resume that highlights their sport and academic achievements. So this could include links to highlight videos or to their personal website, as well as information about their GPA, their height, the position they play, or any other information similar to that. Then students can use the enhanced school search option to find NAIA schools that match their specific preferences, such as size or location. Obviously, sports offered is something that they're going to be interested in, academic programs offered. And once the student identifies their top 5 schools, or if they've already done previous research to know what schools they're interested in, then they can forward their sport resume directly to the sport-specific coach, head coach, and admissions office at that school. The sport-specific coaches and admissions offices will receive an email with a link back to the student's sport resume. So to view the sport resumes that have been sent directly to your school, you'll want to click on the Your Connections Sport Resumes tab in Play NAIA Manager, and that's where you'll find a list of all of the student-initiated sport resumes sent to your school. You can also use the Search Connections button to conduct your own search of students who are registered in NAIA Connections. You can search by the positions they play, by location, by sport, etc., and actually view the sport resumes of those students registered in Connections. So the final tab available to you in Play NAIA Manager is the Directory of Competition. The Directory of Competition is an evolving database of competitive experiences from throughout the world. This database includes whether the competitive experience listed counts towards a season of competition for a student who has that specific experience. The Eligibility Center will continually add new experiences to this directory, as well as update the experiences already listed in the directory based on new information about that particular competitive experience. The directory should be considered a living document, so it's always going to be subject to changes as new information or more information becomes available about a league or an event. If you go into the database, you'll see that different types of leagues and competitions are categorized in one of 3 or 4 different ways. First is countable, which means that the research for that league has been completed and it does meet the standards of NAIA level competition or above. Not countable means that the competition has been reviewed and it's below NAIA level play. Pending means that our research has shown the competition will need to be reviewed on a case-by-case basis because the competition within the league could vary according to specific circumstances, teams, events, etc. And finally, submitted for review means that a student athlete has listed the experience during their registration and somebody in the Eligibility Center is working to make a determination on that event or that experience. So those are the statuses that you'll see if you are looking at leagues in the directory of competition. The directory is available to you in Play NAIA Manager once you've logged in at playnaia.org. And any staff member who has been given permission by their athletic director to access Play NAIA Manager will be able to view the directory. Keep in mind that the competitive experience rule doesn't affect every student who participates in these types of outside play. Only those students who have breaks in enrollment, either between high school and college or between terms in college, will be subject to a review of their competitive experience. In cases where a student has a break prior to participating for the first time at an NAIA school, the student will be required to register or to supplement a previous registration with the Eligibility Center before they can participate in the NAIA. If a student has a break in enrollment after having already participated at an NAIA school, then that will be up to the campus to determine that student's continuing eligibility. I know some coaches have had some questions about when seasons of competitions will be charged, so for that we're going to turn to the 12-month window. For purposes of the competitive experience rule, only one season of competition can be counted in any given 12-month period, i.e. the 12-month window. There are a couple of exceptions to that, however. Under NAIA rules, students can be charged more than one season during a 12-month period when participation by a student in intercollegiate competition occurs in portions of 2 academic years during a given 12-month period, and that would cause the student to be charged 2 seasons of competition. And also when a student represents 2 different institutions in the same academic year. The following guidelines are used to arrange a 12-month window. First, a 12-month window can begin on any date, does not have to start on January 1st. Also, all intercollegiate competition that takes place during an institution's regular defined season in a given sport must be included in one single 12-month window. So it's possible that depending on when that season starts for the student, it can cause a previous 12-month window to end early. And also a 12-month window can be adjusted forward or backward to allow competition to fall within the same window as intercollegiate competition. The resources section of Play NAIA provides a complete description of the 12-month window, but these can be kind of complicated or challenging cases, so if you do have questions or a specific case you're wondering about, we encourage you to call us directly for those. So another area of interest for coaches has been unattached competition. A student competes for your school in a given year, and during that same year, competes unattached or as a member of an outside team, is charged with only one season of competition. So again, that kind of goes back to the 12-month window. But the National Eligibility Committee has ruled that the new competitive experience rule can cause a student athlete to be charged with seasons of competition based on unattached competition in a year where they're not competing for their school, beginning with the 2011-2012 school year. Since the new competitive experience rule takes place on August 2011, enrolled NAIA student athletes who participate as unattached athletes or as members of outside teams during this school year, the 2010-2011 school year, will not be charged a season of competition, provided that they participate consistent with the unattached competition casebook interpretation, which you can find in the NAIA handbook. Legislation has been proposed for the convention that would continue the same approach without interruption. So if the proposed legislation is adopted in April, then students would be able to continue to play under these circumstances without being charged. But as it stands right now, going forward, a student who participates in unattached competition can be charged with a season of competition if they are not participating for their school. So having a good grasp on all of these pieces of the student registration process will be a great help to ensure that there are fewer delays in providing students with an eligibility determination. I know some of this can be complicated, so we'll take some questions now if you have any.
If an individual registers and pays but does not play either of the first two terms in college, must that person register and pay a second time, I believe, for the next year?
Hi, Joyce. No, the answer is no. You don't have to pay again. You pay one time, and you're in the process, and we continue to work with you until you make your way into competition with the NAIA.
Thanks, John. Another follow-up question from the first part of our webinar today comes from Merle Schleybaugh at Bethel College, in the room with us today. He's the FAR at Bethel College. Merle's question is, will the NAIA require college transcripts of a high school graduate if the student has completed college work for credit while still enrolled in high school?
No, we don't require those. If a student, and what you're talking about here is dual enrollment or dual credits for high school students, if a student is taking community college classes or is receiving college credit for a high school course, we don't need the college transcripts. All of those classes should appear on their high school transcripts, and that's what we'll be using to make their eligibility determination.